Now I want to make sure that I'm sawing within my waist area. If I'm not feeling super confident, I'm going to stay pretty far away from those lines. I'm feeling okay-ish, so I'm going to try to saw right on those lines. I'm actually going to try to get my saw curve, or my saw blade, to split that line. So the teeth that are on this side of the saw are sticking out, pointing that direction, are actually going to be right in that knife line. We'll see how it goes. Actually need to reposition you. Alright, so there we are. All the sawing is done. Now all I need to do is chisel this out, and we'll come back and show you how to clean these guys up. So I want to again choose a chisel that's narrower than the opening at the back or on the inside, because my board tapers. There we go. Because the pins are shaped and go in that direction, and they're narrower at the inside, I want to make sure that my chisel will actually fit. This 5/8 is just barely going to fit, but I'm going to use it. Because it's wider than the 3/8 that I was using for the tails, I need to keep in mind it's going to take a little bit longer for me to cut things, and I just need to be patient. Body out of the way. So because it's wider towards the bottom than it is at the top, or as I'm looking at it right now, it's wider towards the bottom as it is the top. I can use the same width chisel, so I'm using my 1/2-inch chisel. Yeah, it is my 1/2-inch chisel to cut down and the chisel in from the end. Move it a little this way. So when I'm chiseling from the inside, I don't need to worry about which angle the chisel is in this orientation. Once I flip the board over and start coming from the face or the show face, I then have to start paying attention to which angle this chisel is interacting with the wood at, because if I don't pay attention to that, I'm going to start cutting into those tails or those pins. try to give myself a little bit of space. Alright, so now I've gotten about a third of the way through. I'm going to flip it over and start from this side. So I'm going to make one light tap to get this kind of, so that it's not skittering across the surface. Then I'm going to actually need to start tilting this chisel. I like to exaggerate how much I tilt the chisel, just because it gives me a buffer zone, that way I'm not digging into that tail. So staying a fair distance away, more than I normally would on the tail side. I'm going to do one to set it, and then I'm going to tilt it and give it a whack. Do the same thing from this side. One whack. Pop my chip out. Notice I didn't switch to a wider chisel to remove this material up here. That's because if I go to a wider chisel, I run the risk of driving that wider one too far in and damaging those pins again. So I'm staying with my narrower chisel, that one that fits through the back, one to set it and then tilt it. And I can do up to 2 hits. The second one might not do a whole lot, but it makes me feel better. That side's ready to break through. So I'm just going to come from this side. Get it. So now all I have to do is clean this up. Then I'll clamp this back in the vise and clean up these faces. And we'll be ready to try to test fit them. So let's clean these up these shoulders. Again, I'm going to flip this over and come from the back side, go about halfway down, and then flip it over. So now I just need to clean up these edges. I'm also going to get in here. There's a little bit of extra gunk down in the bottom that I need to clean up. I'm going to go in with my narrower chisels. I think this one's my 3/8. And just clean up those big pieces first. I'm chiseling from the outside towards the inside. That way if I slip, I don't destroy something I want to keep. And I'm not getting perfectly into these corners because I do have some material on each face of the tail or the pins that I need to remove. So I'm taking a nice wide chisel and I'm actually going to set it in my scribe line that I made on the front and try to just wiggle this back and forth and follow that knife line on the top. The reason I like to mark on the back side is in case I'm a little bit funky. I can chisel from one side, stop halfway, chisel from the other side, and I don't tear something that I don't want torn. Always resist the urge to set the chisel in that knife line on the top and pound it down. The grain on your piece is probably not going to work in your favor and you're going to end up splitting something or having your perfectly square pin end up with an angle on it, which then makes fixing things a lot harder. I actually took off my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go halfway, stop. Go about halfway and stop. Now I'm going to flip it around just because I don't want to tear off that back side. One more. Alright, so that should be pretty good. One way to make sure that it's good is I'm going to take some pencil and put it on the edge of my tails. That's going to transfer to any part that is super, super tight on my pins. move you over. I'm going to clean up the junk that's in there first. Flip this around. And try to tap it together. Alright, so I do have some gaps here and there. It's been quite a while since I've done a whole lot of dovetailing by hand. So I'm actually not too upset with the way they look. There is probably a little bit more cleanup that I need to do. But that's a fairly strong dovetail. There's also fixes that I can show you at a later time on how to fix gaps like that. So, thanks for watching.